Hello everyone, welcome to another tutorial video on object-oriented programming in C++. This tutorial video is all about the protected classifier with respect to object-oriented programming syntax and semantics in C++ programming language. So let's begin creating a project in Netbeans. So file, new project, C++, C++ application, next. So we go for .5 and press finish. So we have a source file and we will put the command on the other side. So we just clean up the code. So let's check everything is working. So this has to be IO stream. I think namespace standard and main argc. So let's compile the program. So it's working now. So now the new project is set to go. So this tutorial video is all about the explanation and how to use the protected classifier. Remember, there are three classifiers in object-oriented programming in C++. There's another one called friend, which is not much used, and the top three is used, which is known as the public, private. These two are generally used or widely used, and another is known as the protected. So this tutorial video is all about talking about protected. If you want to recap of private and public, please check the previous videos. So a lot of details has been already been provided. So this tutorial is specifically on protected, and of course we'll have something private because in C++ the class is actually by default private. So we have to have a classifier called public. So just click on the project, just to right click, new, just go to class. So class creates both the cpp and .h file. So let's what to do is protected. So we have, so just clean up, just give me a minute. I will just clean up the default codes so that we can get going. So this is the header, don't need virtual. So now the protected has been cleaned up. So by default the IDEs will generally create public, private, and some IDEs will create public, protected, and private. So let's change the private to protected. So this is the header. So header is the skeleton, meaning the declaration, and the implementation is done in the .cpp source file. So this is just the bare bone thing. So what we start is I've just given a brief explanation of what is protected. Protected classifier is anything declared under the protected area, meaning anything under the keyword called protected colon behaves as private if you have an instance of the class object, but when you actually inherit the the child class or the class which is inheriting, or the child class will for that the protected acts as public. So I'll just repeat two important things to remember. If you make an instance of the class which has protected, the instance, for that instance the protected behaves like private, and if you actually inherit the class which has protected, the child class or the class that inheriting the base class or the master class, the protected behaves as public. So let's create a string variable called name. So let's initialize the name in equals protected. Okay. So we have a protected variable called name, data type is string, and in the constructor, so this is the constructor. So this is the constructor protected, and we have initialized the name to a keyword, so they don't need enter. So we have initialized the name to the string called protected. So what we can do, actually we'll print it out and see where something is valid, where something is not valid. So what we can do, we include iStream. So this is just to use the cout, and using namespace standard. So this is just to use, so this has to be done in the header. You can also do in the class file, meaning .cpp file, but it is recommended to put all the includes, headers, and the namespaces uh, using namespace standard. So all the namespaces and the headers in the sense what you are including the headers from the library in the header of the file, and then only do the implementation part in the .cpp source file. So what we'll do, we'll just print it out from protected class this dot name. So this is just for printing out as soon as the protected class instance starts running, its protected variable called name with a data type called string is initialized to a string called protected, and we are just printing out that in this class, as soon as the constructor dot running, it has been initialized to this name. Okay, so first include, let's have an instance running, so we just include the header of protected, and then I will just so let's not have simply unnecessary printing. So let's create an instance of the protected class protected. Let's print out its name, protected dot. So as you can see, it is not giving any suggestions. Let's say we override the suggestions given by the IDE. That's why this IDE is much better than CodeBlocks in general, for especially for cross-platform, even on Windows or any other operating system you want to use. So let's coming back to the header called protected. The string with the variable called name is actually protected, and we have created the instance called protected. I'm just trying to the protected.h pro. So I'm just saying was sometimes this actually starts cribbing. So it depends upon the IDE what you're using, and depends upon the compiler. So there is some variations from compiler to IDE to IDE. So just get used to one good IDE, and think about whether you are going for cross-platform or you're going for platform-specific. So on Windows, platform-specific Visual Studio is the best, and for Mac OS X, Mac, you can get Xcode. So these two are the best for their specific operating systems. But when someone is looking for cross-platform, so please be careful of choosing the IDE and get used to it. So let's run it, because we know this name behaves like a private for the instance called protected, which is the class data type called protected, because in the header the variable called string is actually under the class specifier called protected. So that's because of that this Netbeans is actually cribbing that there is no point in having instance called protected, because there is only one variable which is actually protected, and this dot name, meaning the name, actually behaves like a private. So there is no point in using the instance called protected, because there is no other variable that is actually that can be used. So let's see what compiler actually comes up with an error. You should have a compile time error. So as you can see, it's telling it's all protected and we are using it, which there's no point in using protected class which has only one variable which is protected. So how to use so this is the error you get. So any compiler will create compile time error. The program will not even run. So what to do is to inherit the class which is having protected, meaning create another class and inherit the protected class and use the protected variable there. So what to do? So let's create another class called inherit. So just a moment, I've just cleaned up the code so that it's very readable. So we have created two files. One is known as the inherit.h header and inherit.cpp. So what we are going to do is inherit the protected class as public. May include the header, so automatically the IDEs will do generally, and then we are using the protected class with the classifier called public. We are inheriting in the class called inherit. So what to do with this? So let's try to access the protected variable called name in the protected class. So what we can do is let's add IO stream first so that you can use cout. So let's come to namespace. Okay, so we'll come back to here. So we'll have the first we'll do cout from the inherit class. So what we can do, just to type this, so actually you can see the name here. So what we can do, cout from inherit class So what we have done is we created a header called inherit. We're inheriting the protected class with a classifier called public and trying to access the protected variable in the protected class, which is the name. And because the classifier in the protected is protected, I hope you're following. Protected is the classifier, so I've just created a protected class is the class name. Hopefully it's not very confusing. So protected is the class name and protected is classifier where there is a string called name. So we inherited in the inherit class and then we are accessing that this called name. This is here which is visible because the protected class is now the protected class name, the variable called name, which is protected in the protected class, behaves as a public variable. So the name is actually visible in the inherit class. So let's learn the program and see how it works. So we have a lot of errors. So missing a so still we have the same error here, so we have to remove this statement because so what we can do, instead of going for protected, let's say we use the inherit class and use the inherit instead of protected, because inherit is inheriting the protected class, and hence we have the name. So inherit is inheriting the protected class, so we are using inherited class and not the protected class, and inherit class is inheriting the protected class, hence the name is actually the uh, is actually also private. For example, I'll just repeat, in the protected class the name is protected, so for the inherit class it behaves as a public, but for the instance here it behaves private, so this statement will not work. So let's run it, so it should prove it that it should not work. So it's not working because it's a protected here, so this statement will not work. This instance will work, but this statement does not work because the name is still, for the instance called inherit, the name is actually behaving as a private, so this statement will not be executed, so it is giving a compile time error. So this is not at all working. So what we can do for the time being, we just comment it out, and we have some statements which is running in the cout, meaning it will print to the console. So we have both the things, and now let us run it because we have commented out the statement which is not valid. So as you can see, first the protected class runs, and we have from the protected class the name is known as protected, and now the next it goes to inherit class. Remember the sequence of inheritance in the previous video, please check the previous video, and also check out how to do the debugging with respect to inheritance. And if you want to know more in detail about the public and private, please check the previous videos of the tutorial series. So this instance has been now created. When the program starts running, first it will go to the protected file, so execute this statement, so the name is now protected, so we get the name is protected from the protected class. From the protected class this is print out. Next comes to the constructor of the inherit, so now it is in the from the inherited class, so we have from the inherited class, and from the inherited class we are actually printing which is the protected. But this cout will not work because the name for the instance of the inherited class also it behaves as a private. So I'll just repeat, for the instance of the class the protected behaves as private, but if we inherit inside the child class from the which is inheriting the parent class, the protected behaves as public. That's why this statement will not work. So how to make it work? We should have a getter setter on the thing. So what we can do here is, so we have a get name from protected. So we'll implement this function in the inherit, and we should add all the namespace. So what we can do, just return this name. This name actually is in the protected class, not in the inherit class, and we are editing the inherit class. So just ignore this string red color because somehow Netbeans is not able to recognize string as a valid data type and as a keyword for C++. So we are returning this name. This name actually belongs to protected class, and the protected class is now inherited by the inherit class. So in the inherit class the name behaves as public, but in the instance it does not behave as public, it behaves as private, so this statement is not valid. So now we have a getter method in the inherit class, so now we can actually get the value of the variable name, which is string, and actually print it out. So what I can do, so now this statement should work because we have a public method which access the name, which is actually protected in the base class or the parent class, that has been accessed inside the inherited class or the child class with the public method called get name from protected. So this should print, this statement should actually work now. So as you can see in main protected. So let's do another one, another exercise. What we can do is we'll actually change the value of name in the inherit class because it is now behaving as a public variable. So this will actually print the original value, this statement, and now we have actually changed the value of the name to this string, change in inherit class, because this name is behaves as a public variable inside the inherit class. But when it comes to the instance, the inherit, we are using a public method called get name from protected. So the get name from protected should actually tell this is changed in the inherit class because the name is now public inside the inherit class, because inherit is actually inheriting the protected class. So let's run it. So as people can see, this is the this protected, the name is known as, is having the stream called protected. Then it comes to the inherit class. In the inherit class it is printed the actual value of the variable name, which is protected, which was set in the parent class. So in the child class we actually changed it to change in inherit class, and hence when this statement runs, the name is having the string called changed in inherit class because we actually changed here. So hopefully the programmers actually understood the difference between public, private and protected. So in last statement in one line, protected behaves as public in the inherited class, and the public and the protected behaves as public in the inheritance tree or inherited class. It behaves as private in the instance of the class object. So this is there's a flip in functionality, meaning as the access specifier thing. So I think I will end this tutorial here. Thanks for watching this tutorial is such a long time, and please stay tuned for additional tutorial videos coming in this tutorial series. Thanks a lot. Bye.